and welcome back to Cello 101. Today, we are working on the Gavotte by J.B. Luby, and it's kind of fun. I enjoy this one. It's got a lot of room for interpretation. It's got a lot of room for personal flair and flavor, and it's got some interesting things that we haven't really run across before. Starting off, it is Allegretto, which, if I'm remembering correctly, is in the 92 to 108 BPM kind of range. We're not going to be taking it to the top end of the range because this is designed. It is designed to have a lot more flexibility to it. It's also designed to be played with an accompanist, which is something that, if you have the capacity to do, I highly recommend it. It is it's a solo cello, which for the longest time I had thought solo cello just meant it's only a cello on stage playing. It is an accompanied cello solo, meaning that you are playing with some form of accompaniment, usually a piano. It's a nice, fun piece. We have a lot in terms of phrasing. We have a lot in terms of positional changes. We have a whole bunch of caesuras. We start mezzo forte con grazioso, which is in a graceful manner in Italian. We have a lot of staccato markings, a lot of bowings that are going to be very important. And just, yeah, overall, it's a whole lot of fun. I enjoy this one. Instead of starting playing the entire thing, let's go ahead and work through it bit by bit, and then we can work from there. Let's take a look at these extension exercises at the tail end on page 7. We'll just run through those really easy. These are designed to help you work with your forward and backwards extensions. So starting with the backwards ones, let's go ahead and take a look at that. So go ahead and join me on this one. Pay attention to the fingerings. These are going to be important, not so much now, but in the forward extensions, those are going to be a thing. So go ahead and join me. Just simple one, we're only doing the top line. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. This is going to be handy when you are playing anything with a B flat, which comes up very early in the cycle of flats. And then let's go ahead and play the second line. That one is going to be kind of an up. So instead of a descending, it's going to be descending, ascending, descending, ascending. So same tempo. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Nice, easy, simple, straightforward. This is going to be actually relevant in this piece, as well as the next one. So, looking at forward extensions, it's going to be first position, just straight up 1, 3, 4, and then it is going to change to a 1 extended 2, 3. Then it'll be 1, 3, 4, 1 extended 2, 3, so that you can get that sound, you can get what is in tune, what is out of tune in your ear before you start doing weird fingerings. This would also be a good chance to use your tuner to make sure that you are playing in tune. So go ahead and join me. Same tempo. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. tend to go, especially when I'm doing the 1, 2, 3, I tend to go a little bit flat with my third finger on that D, which is something that tuner is definitely pointing out. And you can also hear it in the instrument. That's better. So let's go ahead and do that top line of the forward extensions one more time. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Okay. And then the second line is going to be up, down, instead of just constant ascending. You'll notice that there's, especially in practice chunks like this and etudes, there is one thing that they're working on and they're pushing very, very hard, but there is, depending on which etudes you're working on, especially in the world of etudes, it's almost a mechanical, repeatable way that a lot of it is approached. In this one, it starts, in the backwards extensions, for example, start with descending. Descending, 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 descending. And then it goes descending, ascending, descending, ascending. Well, with the forward extensions, they're starting with just the ascending, so ascending, 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 descending, ascending, descending. There's a lot to be gained from the practice when you approach it in a logical, thought out, and repeatable manner. I had the absolute hardest time when I was growing up because the only way that I knew how to practice was to play the piece. And if I couldn't play the piece, I would just bash at the piece and attempt to play it until I either picked up horrible habits, happened frequently, or finally figured out what was supposed to be going on, and then I could play it. These kind of practice things, super handy, super, super, super handy. They stink to work with. I really do not enjoy doing them, but they teach you a disproportionate amount compared to just playing through pieces. There's something to be said for sight reading, being able to pick up a piece and then play through it first time, never having worked on it. But we're nowhere near that point right now. The parts and pieces that you can practice that are geared towards achieving a specific thing, teaching a specific point, getting one particular thing across, super handy. Do not sleep on them. They have a point, they have a purpose. Pay attention. I definitely didn't for a very long time, partly because I was teaching myself for the first 3 years that I was playing. In fact, one of the things that, after I auditioned into college, one of the things I was told by the cello professor during my very first lesson was, I am surprised you can play as well as you can for how poorly you play. Which, at the time, I was highly insulted. Because I thought I did pretty well. Like, I got into college and got a scholarship. Not a large one, was a very small college. Regardless, got into college, got a scholarship to go to college to play music on this instrument. And she's sitting here saying, like, you're doing pretty good for not doing it well. And I'm just, what? At that point, then we started working through a lot of this kind of stuff, a lot of the, like, how to practice, how to work on things. And it really unlocked a lot in music. Like, oh, I don't just need to keep playing it over and over and over and over again until I either learn it or I get so burnt out I just want to throw the piece out the window. Oh, there's ways that you can, like, actually break down harder sections to get better at it? Oh, well, that's handy. And that led to a lot of rapid advancement and helped reverse a lot of the burnout that I was dealing with. Anyway, enough of my particular history. Let's go ahead and do this last line on the forward extensions, and we'll start breaking down the gavotte into bite-sized pieces. So, last line, it'll be ascending, descending, ascending, descending, and then we'll go from there. Make sure if you do have a tuner, which I would highly recommend picking one up if you do not have one already, go ahead and practice this piece through, like, on your own time. or not this piece, but these practice deals, these they're not etudes, but practicing the forward extension, the backward extension with your tuner running. I highly recommend it. It will help you develop what those pitches are in your ear, because you can look at a screen or you can look at colored dots and it'll tell you when you're playing in tune, when you're flat, when you're sharp. So let's go ahead and do the second line of the forward extension. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. One more time. Now keep in mind, that one does have a sharp 4, so it isn't going to be a 1, 2, 3. It's going to be a 1, 2, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Repeat. No, I apologize. I have the wrong fingerings. I apologize. I was thinking it was already sharp. I was looking ahead. So let's go ahead and do that one more time. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Okay, so tuner goes up. We're going to be working at 80 BPM to begin with, and then by the end of this, we're going to be putting it together at about 100 BPM. So, we're starting with Allegretto. Like I said, I believe it's 92 to like 108 BPM. It's about on par with Moderato. It's a little bit slower than Moderato, but not by much. It's kind of in between Andante and Moderato. My metronome has a handy little guide on the back that's kind of printed in, that'll give you some of the terms, obviously not all of them, because you have terms in French, in Italian, and German. It's all over the place. But this one is going to be broken down into phrases using the caesuras, those little railroad tracks. If you look in measure 4, halfway through you'll find just that double slash through the A line, and that's going to be a caesura. Fun fact, that's also where the pause button for like play DVD music, all that kind of stuff, those two vertical lines are a derivation of the slanted caesura lines for music. So looking at this first chunk from beginning to the first caesura in measure 4, we are starting Allegretto. We've already established that that's going to be between 92 and 108. We're shooting for 100 in our finish tempo. Our practice tempo is going to be 80, so that we have it slowed down and we can work through things a little bit easier. We are starting mezzo forte. Cool, fine. Nothing out of the ordinary there. And then we are also running con grazioso, which is Italian for in a graceful manner. We have staccato markings on the first, or on the 2-note pickup, underneath the slurred notes in measure 2, technically. And then nothing else really out of the ordinary for that entire first phrase. So, 1, 2, 3, 4 is kind of the pace that we're going to take it at right now. So, counting this in, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're into the races. So it'll be 1, 2. Nice, easy, simple. Let's go ahead and play it together. So let's go ahead and play it together. 1, 2. Okay, moving on from the caesura in measure 4 through to measure 5, 6, 7, 8. don't really have anything out of the ordinary, starting with a couple of staccato notes, under the slur, staccato notes under the slur, and ending with 4 staccato notes before that last half note. And then we do have a sharp 4, or sharp 4th finger, sharp C, or C sharp, sorry, in measure 5, 6, 7, measure 7. So keep that in mind. We will go ahead and play this second chunk. So it'll be 1, 2, start. So 1, 2. Sharp. Let's do that one more time. I think my tempo was a little slow. 4, 1, 2. Sharp. Now, with this, as your bow is going to want to come off the string, you are going to want to stop making noise completely. So you're not going to want to. You're going to want. Okay. So let's go ahead and put those 2 phrases together. So it'll be from the beginning to measure 8. This is your in measure 8. Just so we can kind of get the feeling of putting all of this together. So, starting at the beginning, to measure 8. Ready? 1, 2. Starting in measure 8, running until measure 10, 11, 12. I'm going to go ahead and mark that. Let's take a look at that. We have a natural 4, so we will not be playing the sharp 4 on that second pickup note. We do have some interesting things going on with the rhythm here. This section I know would have given me trouble in the past. I have to say, it still kind of tossed me for a loop the first time I ran through it. So let's go ahead and let's run through it first, see if you can play along, and then we'll break it down into chunks. So, just double checking the tempo. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a. Okay. 1, 2. Backwards there. My apologies. So one more time. This is what it sounds like. So breaking that down, let's go ahead and take a look at measure 10. That'll be the beginning of our problems. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. Breaking that down into 8s. 1 and so it'll be 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So that 16th note is going to be taking up the entirety of the and of the 4th beat. If you're really wanting to get into the technical terminology, running on the 1E and schematic, it'll be 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and so it's very quick. So let's go ahead and run through that. We'll just go ahead and run it without a click track just so that we can kind of run it that way. So just measure 10. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Okay, one more time. We're taking this one very slow so that we can roll everything together. Ready? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Okay. Let's go ahead and try it at our practice tempo. 1, 2, 3. And obviously you don't need to emphasize those sixteenths, but I'm trying to help get the timing across. So let's do that one more time, and then we'll move on to measure 11, which also has some funky stuff. Measure 10. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Okay, and then moving on to measure 11, it'll be very simple. Starting on a up, down. Yeah, starting on an up bow there. Normally I try not to start in the middle of a phrase, but since we're breaking it down and kind of deconstructing the entirety, it'll be handy. So, listening to that one more time. When you look at how it's overall set out, if you were just playing the quarter notes, and then you're adding in those sixteenths. Literally, it's just for flavor. The main rhythmic beat of the deal is the quarter notes. And then you're adding in those sixteenths. So let's go ahead and do that again. We'll take it nice and slow. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay. One more time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and... Counting, talking, and fingering all at the same time does kind of scramble my brain. My apologies. So, let's go ahead and string measures 10 and 11 together. Still at that slower than practice tempo. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. See how they're kind of related? In measure 10, we have a dotted quarter note that'll take up the space of a quarter and an eighth. In measure 11, we have a quarter and an eighth, then going into those sixteenths leading into the next deal. So let's go ahead and try that again. I am not going to count this time. Measures 10 and 11 with finishing up in 12, but whatever. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Sorry, that should have started as an up bow so that we were keeping track with the correct bowings. So, let's go ahead and do that one more time, and then we'll take it up to full tempo and go from there. Well, practice tempo, not like full actual performance tempo. So, measures 10 and 11 at... Yep. 1, 2, 3... Now that we have that up to the proper tempo for our practicing, make sure you're paying attention to bowings. Bowings are going to be very important in this piece. It's kind of the foundation on how a lot of the phrasing is done. If you get backwards, you can kind of fudge it. I would not recommend making a habit of doing so. I definitely did. I definitely had to relearn. 11 out of 10, do not recommend. So, keeping that in mind, let's go ahead and do that entire chunk from measure 8 through to the caesura in measure 12, just so we have the entire phrase all locked together. So, it'll be 1 and 2 and 3 is where we come in. So, 1 and 2 and... One more time and then we'll move on. 1, 2. we are repeating one of the earlier lines, so shouldn't take all that much. Starting in measure 12, running the caesura in measure 16. 1, 2. Okay, do that one more time and then we will move on to the next section because that has some funky stuff. So, 10, 11, 12 to the caesura in 16. 1 and 2 and... Okay. Now, looking at the measure 16 through, we do not have a caesura technically until measure 34. So we've got a chunk. This is going to be a chunk that we're going to have to practice in parts. So leading into the measure 21 where that rest is, just doing that chunk from 16 to the rest in 21 sounds like this. So the TR in measure 20 is going to be a trill. It is going to be a half-step trill. There is also the full-step trill, which is not in this case. So it'll be from E to F. And then we do... they're stringing together a half note and a dotted eighth note, dotted quarter note, my apologies, leaving only an eighth note left in the phrase so that you can get the effect of, which is common and familiar with, or familiar, common, and not uncalled for in this particular time period. The next issue, let's go ahead and just do that chunk. So measure 21 into 20, or measure 20 into 21. So it'll be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Let's go ahead and do that just by itself. Go ahead and join me. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. It's going to take up a significant portion of your bow, especially at these slower speeds. So definitely start right by the frog. Make sure you're halfway in between your fingerboard and your bridge so that you get good, nice sound. The closer you are to the bridge, the slower you can go and still get volume, but the scratchier it gets. The closer to your fingerboard that you play, the nicer it'll sound, but the more bow it'll take to get the same amount of volume. So you'll burn bow faster up here, you'll burn bow slower down here, but your tone is better the closer to your fingerboard, the tone is rougher the closer to your bridge. Just things that, yeah. So let's go ahead and try measure 20 into 21. I'm just going to count off 2 beats, so 3 and 4, and then go ahead and play with me. And it is... Trilling is weird. Well, trilling is weird pretty much all the way around, but the focus of trilling is not to go as fast as you can, but it isn't... You want to be expressive with it. In this case, we are driving to an end goal. So you want to kind of swell with it, kind of like the same way that you do with volume when you're doing a crescendo or a decrescendo. It has that same kind of like curved feel to it, but it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice. Good Lord, it takes a lot of practice. For the longest time, I could not get trills, did not understand them, didn't like them. But then again, you might have picked up by, book 3 in this particular series that I'm rather opinionated. So, let's go ahead and do measure 21, or measure 20 into 21 one more time just to practice that trill, and then we'll back up and pull from the caesura to the trill, and then we can start working on the next chunk, which is going to be third position fingering. So, trill first. So 3, 4, and then begin. 3 and 4 and... let's go ahead and back up to the caesura in measure 16, pull all the way through to that trill. 1 and 2 and. Okay, one more time. Starting back at the caesura in 16, 1 and 2 and. Okay, now we are going to pick up at the puimoso. This is some of where the interesting things start. So we've got that trill coming in. So let's work on that rhythm first, because then we'll get into the fingering. So you're going to have to count in this one. Is going to be 1 and 2, or here. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2. So it'll be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and the rhythm is kind of rough there. It took me for a spin. So my apologies, my shift was a little rough. So the counting in measure 21 will be 1 and 2 and 3. So that'll be so that'll be 1 and 2. So let's go ahead and work on that trill into the puimoso measure. So it'll be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, let's do that one more time. Measure 20 into 21. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3. Okay, now since that section we've covered that one, let's go ahead and work on the ascending scale in the last half of 21 through measure 22. It'll be a nice simple scale. And then we're jumping into third position. So first finger where your fourth would be. Fingerings are super handy here. We are dealing with a minor scale going up, and this would be the melodic, because it goes up one way and it comes down a different. So going up, it'll be a B natural, C sharp, A, D, F, E natural, D, C sharp, B flat, A, G, blah, 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 blah. So, you know what, let's go ahead and do second half of 21 to 23. It'll sound like this. Okay. Let's take it by 4-note chunks. So 8th note bars, basically. Second half of 21. 1 and 2 and. One more time. 1 and 2 and. Okay. Beginning of measure 22. First 4 notes. 1 and 2 and. One more time. 1 and 2 and. Okay. So from here, we're going to shift up to first finger on the D. 1 and 2 and. One more time. 1 and 2 and. And then beginning of measure 23, we're shifting back into first position. It'll be a sharp C, a B flat, and then everything else kind of runs out like normal. Just those first four notes in 23. 1 and 2 and. One more time. 1 and 2 and. And then the last four notes in 23, still in first position, nothing out of the ordinary here. 1 and 2 and. Again. 1 and 2 and. Okay. Now we are going to do the four notes tacking on the next of the next bar. So it'll sound like this. Last half of 21 into the first note of 22. 1 and 2 and. So it'll be 5 notes instead of 4. So go ahead and join me. Last half of 21 into the first note of 22. 1 and 2 and. Okay. Now first 5 notes of 22. 1 and 2 and. So this is practicing that shift. Let's go ahead and do that a couple more times. First 5 notes of 22. 1 and 2 and. See, I didn't quite hit that shift there. Let's go ahead and do that again. 1 and 2 and. Okay. Now we're going to do the last 4 notes of 22 and the first note of 23. So we're starting in third position. 1 and 2 and. Okay. Again, 1 and 2 and. Okay. Again, 1 and 2 and. Okay. First 5 notes of measure 23. 1 and 2 and. Again, 1 and 2 and. And then the last 4 notes of 23. With the first note of 24 on it, just for keeping the pattern the same. 1 and 2 and. Again, 1 and 2 and. Okay, now we'll break it down into 8-note chunks, so it'll be half a bar, half a bar. Starting in last half of 21 into the first half of 22. 1 and 2 and. Again, 1 and 2 and. Okay, now it'll be all of 22. 1 and 2 and. Again, 1 and 2 and. And now it'll be last half of 22 into the beginning of 23. Starting in third position. 1 and 2 and. Again, 1 and 2 and. And then it'll be all of 23. 1 and 2 and. And again, 1 and 2 and. Okay, now let's do all of that together. We should have, so we started with a 4 note because that's easy to keep under one hand. None of our shifting happens in the middle of it. Then we did 1 note, or we did 4 notes plus 1 so that we can get those shifts down initially. Then we did 8 notes, which would be 4 notes with a shift, either up or down. And now we should be able to string this entire thing together. So starting in 22, ending in 20, or starting in 21, ending in 23. Just that entire up and then down section. 1 and 2 and. Because I hate leaving something unresolved. So let's go ahead and do that a couple more times, just so that we can kind of get the feel for that. So 1 and 2 and. One more time. 1 and 2 and. Let's do that one more time because I was not quite in tune. 1 and 2 and. Okay. Now, let's work on that trill into that entire thing. Now remember, it'll be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... so 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, da 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 da. So 1 and da 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 da. Okay, let's go ahead and work on that trill through the entire chunk that we just worked on. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. Again, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Let's back up to the caesura in 16 and work through to where we've been ending. 1 and 2 and... Let's go ahead and work through 24 and 25. Very simple, descending, jump up, descending, octave notes, and then the exact same run up to the what we've just worked on. So 24, 25. 1 and 2 and... And this next section, 26 and 27 should look very familiar because we literally just got done doing them. So let's go ahead and do 24 and 25, and then we'll add everything else in. So 24, 25, 1 and 2 and... Okay. Now let's go ahead and add in 24 through 27, and ending on the root of the scale there. 1 and 2 and... Exact same thing. Let's go ahead and do that chunk again, and then we will continue on. 24 through 27, ending on the tonic note. 1 and 2 and... Okay. We've got a repeat of 24 in measure 28. We've got almost a repeat of 25 in measure 29. We've literally got 29 repeated in measure 30, and then we go on to something a little bit different. So let's go ahead and just play 28 through to the next caesura. It'll be, admittedly, there is a third position thing there. We'll deal with that here in a second, but give it a shot. Let's see what we can do. Just keep in mind when you are jumping up to hit that A in measure 31, you're going to be needing to hit it with your third finger. So instead of going up into third position with your first finger, hitting like a D or where your fourth finger would normally be, you're jumping up and hitting where your third finger would be, duplicating the string above it. So let's go ahead and do 28 to measure 34. 1 and 2 and... fretboard there, super nice. You can pull this out as much as you need. Don't go too far. But let's go ahead and work on measure 30 into measure 31. So we've had this octave thing. Before, not a big deal. Super nice, super simple. The only problem is when you go back up to hit that A, you're going to need to be in a shifted position. So let's go ahead and work on last half of 30 to first note of 31. And we're going to do this a little bit differently. We're going to be playing the open A as well as your third finger so that we can make sure we're hitting exactly where we need to be. So, last four notes of 30 into the first note of 31, adding the open A. Ready? 1 and 2 and. Again. It is going to be it is going to have a tendency to scream, but we just want to make sure that is in tune. So again, 1 and 2 and. Again, 1 and 2 and. Again, 1 and 2 and. Okay. So, in third position, we are sitting at. And then we shift back to first. So let's go ahead and work on that. The third position in the A. Ready? 1 and 2 and. Shift. Just that section. Well, again. There we are. Good Lord. Okay. 32 to 34. First half of 34. Ready? 1 and 2 and. I guess technically that was an open. My apologies. You don't actually have to shift up to hit that open A with the first finger. I just like the vibrato there. I guess I should play the fingerings that are actually written instead of showing off. My apologies. Okay, let's go ahead and do that chunk again, starting in 31, and then we'll start adding the things behind it so that we can move forward. 31. Ready? 1 and 2 and. Okay, now let's add 24. Yeah, let's add 24 to all of that. So 24 up to 34. Now we're going to start building backwards, incorporating everything in that phrase, and then we can move on. 24. Ready? 1 and 2 and. Let's go ahead and take a step back to 21, and we'll stop at the same place. Let's do 20 to where we were so that we can work on that trill, get that pause in there, and then continue on. And then we'll step back to 16, do all the way through, and then we can move on. So, measure 20 with that obnoxiously long trill. Ready? 1 and 2 and. now that retard there starts to make a little bit more sense. Let's go ahead and back it up to the caesura in 16, and then we can roll all of this together. This is the hardest part in the entire song. You've got slightly weird rhythms. For some reason, these like pauses in the middle of things and then like picking up offbeats just messes with my head. So you've got rhythmic stuff, you've got shifting stuff, you've got bowing stuff, you've got trills, and you've got more shifting stuff, and then you end with a retard that you need to be able to keep in pace, and then begin again a tempo. It's a good little section. I like it. So, starting in 16. Still keeping that... Yep, okay. 16, second half right after the caesura, all the way to where we've been ending. So, 1 and 2 and... Keep in mind, we do have a fermata there on that very last note right before the caesura. That means that you can hold that as long as you think it needs to be held. The dot with the like sideways parentheses over the top means hold me. And at that point, you can hold it for as long as you need. Obviously, don't sit there for John Cage 4 minutes and 33 seconds because people will look at you weird and then they'll get up. But we do have the retard, a complete break in sound, and then we start a tempo. Okay, so let's go ahead and pick up measure 34 to the first caesura in 38. We have been over this. We'll go over it a couple more times, and then we'll move forward and start working on rolling everything together. So we have seen this exact phrase. This is the opening of the song. So let's go ahead and do this one more time. Measure 34 to the first caesura. 1 and 2 and... Okay, one more time. 1 and 2 and... Okay, moving on. Measure 38 to measure 42. This should be the next section that we have already played. Yeah, this is measure 4 to measure 8. So, go ahead and do this. 1 and 2 and... Keep in mind that is a C sharp, so that'll be an extended 4. Let's go ahead and do 38 to 42 again. 1 and 2 and... Measure 42 through to measure 46. Keep in mind, this is the same section that we had at the beginning around that measure 10 mark that has those funky 16ths. 42 to 46. 1 and 2 and... Okay, one more time. 1 and 2 and... let's just go ahead and take 46 to the end. The only difference here is moving on. Actually, no, this should be the exact same thing. So the entire format for this song is A, which is what we have up to like roughly measure 20. We have B, measure 20 roughly to measure 34, and then we have A again. It's nicely, it mirrors itself. It's nice, it's repeatable, it's something that you can anticipate. So let's go ahead and do 46 to the end, just to kind of help move this along. 1 and 2 and. Okay, one more time. And again, we do have a little bit of retard there. You can draw that out more if you do prefer. Usually I kind of slow it a little bit, but not enough to like hinder the song. So let's go ahead and do 46 to the end, and we'll pay a little bit more attention to that retard there. So 1 and 2 and. Groovy. So let's go ahead and play. So we got a little bit faster there. I apologize. I advanced the tempo a little bit. Let's go ahead and play beginning to the end. Let's double check our tempo. Okay. And then after this, we can speed it up to the final tempo, which should be about 100 BPM, and then we can go from there. So, starting at the beginning, go ahead and join me, and then we will hammer this entire thing out. So, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Sorry, my apologies. So, 1 and 2 and. There we are. Now, this is about where this is 100 BPM, and you'll start to feel that allegro kind of bounce to it. We have admittedly been playing it a chunk under tempo. With this at 100 BPM, you will be able to feel a lot more flow to it, and the phrasing will make a lot more sense, especially with some of the retards and then how you recover from those. So, as the final for the evening, let's go ahead and give this a shot, and then work on getting that one up to tempo. And then once you do, it will be at, this is full tempo, and you'll kind of see how and why it works that way. Okay, so starting at the beginning all the way through, 1 and 1, 2, 1. I got the last two notes backwards. Drat. It should be. My apologies. Okay. Well, that would be Gavotte by J.B. Lilly. It probably will take more than just listening to this, playing through it one time through with me to get this up to speed. This is not insignificant spot of music. You've got a whole bunch of stuff going on. You've got a bunch of shifts. You've got a bunch of interesting rhythmic stuff. You have a lot of, not so much dynamics, but you have a lot of stylistic stuff going on as well. Playing it at that faster tempo, you can definitely see why the caesuras, the completely lifting the bow, breaking the sound, is necessary. You don't necessarily need to damp it with your hands, but coming completely off the string gives you a complete chunk of a phrase, or it gives you a complete phrase. And then you can kind of shape that as necessary. There's a bunch of other recordings online of this particular piece, out of this particular book, that'll also give you kind of an inspiration on how else you can phrase this. Some pieces, or some examples are going to be faster, some are, I don't really think there's any going to be slower. But with that, listening to a bunch of different places, a bunch of different styles, a bunch of different players will also give you a lot more well-rounded sound and a lot better handle on the expression available. And I would highly, highly recommend. So that is going to wrap up our lesson for this evening. And thank you very much for joining me. I definitely appreciate it. And now that we're getting this far along in the books, we are starting to hit some really interesting pieces that are definitely going to require a lot more work to be able to get them under your belt. And I look forward to the experience. Thank you much. Catch you next time.